What to do when ICE shows up. Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States out of our offices in St. Louis, San Diego, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, Illinois. The other day I made a video on TikTok about how people should respond when ICE interacts with them. And I was talking about the things that you might want to say, the way you might want to act. And everybody was like, well, that's all well and good, Jim, but you don't know what you're talking about. ICE is just grabbing people, smashing windows, storming into houses, grabbing people off the street. All that is true. But there does come a time when you are talking face to face to the ICE officer about your particular situation after things have cooled down. I don't know that I have that much advice about what to do when you're in an extreme situation where they're smashing things or gassing people or doing all the horrible things that we're seeing on television. I want to talk about when things calm down, because if you get taken into custody, there will be a time where you're talking to the officer. We're going to talk about that in this video. We're going to go through the whole scenario from when you first interact with ICE all the way to perhaps the beginning of your deportation case. So we've all seen the news. We know what's going on in cities like Portland and Chicago, Los Angeles. We see ICE officers outside detention facilities or just randomly on the street, grabbing up people because they look brown, grabbing up people because they look like laborers, storming apartment buildings in Chicago, Illinois. It is mind-boggling. It is scary. These people are running around with masks on. They're not properly identified. I saw a video the other day of alleged ICE agents trying to pull a Latino man in the south side of Chicago into a Toyota Sienna or something. It wasn't marked as an official vehicle. It's absolutely nuts. I think we have Proud Boys out there acting as ICE officers. There's all kinds of stories of people being assaulted by alleged ICE officers. It's a screwy situation. It's absolutely appalling. It's one of the worst examples of law enforcement misdeeds that I've ever seen. And I know a lot of immigrants are scared. I know people are staying inside their houses, especially people in the cities that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and Thomas Homan have targeted. I know that there are a lot of people, even green card holders, who are scared in those cities. And I don't mean to minimize that at all. What I'm trying to do is to empower you to understand how to protect your rights, how to assert yourself, how to stay calm, and hopefully present your case and your situation in the strongest light possible. One thing that you need to understand is that Stephen Miller and the Department of Homeland Security have given ICE a quota of arresting 3,000 immigrants a day. So that means they're going everywhere and anywhere to try to find immigrants, and they aren't following the law. They aren't giving people due process. They are simply grabbing up those that they can. They say that they're focusing on criminals. They say that they're focusing on people who have entered the United States multiple times without permission. That may be true, but they're also undeniably grabbing up people, grandmas, people who've been here for a really long time, people with DACA, people with pending asylum cases. We see all kinds of instances of ICE just randomly grabbing immigrants and even U.S. citizens and holding them for hours while they sort out their immigration situation. And I don't want to contribute to the fear or the hysteria. And you should understand that people with removal orders are the ones at most at risk. So people who've been in the United States, who maybe have been checking in with ICE, have an old standing removal order or a removal order that was never executed, or they received voluntary departure and they didn't leave. Those are the people who have the least amount of rights, the least amount of protections to see an immigration judge. If ICE comes across those people, they can simply start executing the removal order and kick them out of the United States. So let's talk about what ICE can and cannot do. In order to understand that, you have to understand the difference between a judicial warrant and an administrative warrant. So administrative agencies like USCIS, like ICE, like CBP can issue what are called administrative warrants, and that's to grab an individual that they come across, a specific person. A judicial warrant is a warrant where a law enforcement officer, such as an ICE officer or the FBI or the police, have to go to a judge and say, hey, judge, we have reason to believe that this person has violated federal law, and we want for you to issue a warrant for their house or their car or their workplace or them. And that would give ICE the ability, a judicial warrant would, to come into the home, to come into the office looking for that person or for evidence related to that person's status in the United States. So generally, when it comes to your home, they can't enter unless they either have a judicial warrant or you consent to let them in. So of course, do not consent to let ICE into your house. That's true if you're a U.S. citizen or if you're an immigrant Or if you're an undocumented immigrant, do not let ICE into your house unless they have a judicial warrant. You should be provided a copy of your ICE warrant. Now, of course, in the Chicago nighttime raids, they were just busting down doors, smashing things, grabbing people. That's because they're not following the law. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And of course, in those situations, you just want to do everything you can to stay calm and to stay safe, to not antagonize them, not fight back, not do anything that would give them a chance to arrest you for having assaulted a federal officer. You need to stay calm and you need to be quiet and you need to not say anything. And that brings up the issue of what ICE can and cannot ask you. They are free to ask you whatever you want. You can tell them your name, and after that, I would recommend not telling them anything. Now, if you're a U.S. citizen, you might want to demonstrate that so that you don't get taken into custody. But if you're not a U.S. citizen, or you're not a lawful permanent resident, or you have questionable status, or have a criminal record, I would recommend that you not say anything to ICE other than name, rank, and serial number. What's your name? Let's talk about when you're driving around town. When it comes to vehicles, ICE can't enter your vehicle, again, unless you consent to that request. They might have dogs, they might be scaring you, they might tell you we're going to impound you, but you should not consent to ICE searching your car. They can only search it if they have what's called probable cause, if they have a reasonable reason to think that there's evidence of unlawful activity inside the car, and that the situation requires fast action and for them to enter into the vehicle and to look around for what they think they will find. So how to respond? If ICE knocks on your door, keep the door closed. Do not open the door. Now, of course, if they're smashing it open or blowing the door off its hinges, there's nothing you can do about that. But generally, if ICE comes knocking on your door, do not let them in. Ask to see the warrant. If it is not a judicial warrant signed by a judge, it would have a federal header on the top of it. Don't let them in. And they might say things to you like, oh, we just need to clear up this issue, or oh, we just need to talk to this person, or oh, we're just looking for this person. Don't engage. Don't let them in. If they ask you 17 times, can we come in? Tell them 17 times no. If you are stopped outside, keep asking them this question: am I free to go? 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 Don't answer any questions other than your name and your immigration status. If you think that immigration status would result in you being released, if you think it's going to cause you problems, then be silent as to your immigration status. Am I free to go? Am I free to go? Am I free to go? If they detain you, don't tell them your life story. Don't tell them your immigration history. Say, I want a lawyer. I want to speak to my lawyer. I want a lawyer. I want to speak to my lawyer. I want a lawyer. I want to speak to my lawyer. Decline to answer any questions. I saw the transcript of an ICE interview the other day, and this immigrant did a brilliant job. I refuse to answer. I want my lawyer. I refuse to answer. I want my lawyer. So out and about on the street in a car, these I think are the most volatile and dangerous situations. These are what we're seeing in a lot of these videos of ICE officers acting absurdly and criminally. But again, we want you to be safe. So keep your hands clear. Keep them on the steering wheel. Do not do any sudden movements or anything that might cause an ICE officer to think you're going for a weapon. Try to remain calm. Be quiet. Don't let them into your car unless they have a warrant or they say they have probable cause. Ask them what is the probable cause. Ask them why they're going into your car. And most of all, just be quiet. You should not show them any fake documents or sign anything when stopped in a car like that. Let's talk about the value of calmness, of remaining calm and cool, tranquilo, as we like to say around the hacking household. How do you stay chill when it's so freaking scary? And again, I'm a white dude who grew up in the middle of America. I know it's easy for me to say. I'm just trying to give you some tips or tools or hacks that might put you in a better position if you do run into ICE officers. If you stay calm, you're going to answer questions, you're going to plead the fifth better, you're going to be smarter and saner, and you're going to keep your head about you. Remember, you're going to keep saying, am I free to go? Am I free to go? Am I free to go? I want a lawyer. I want a lawyer. Get my lawyer. I want to talk to my lawyer. That's what you say. As I mentioned, we had that client referred to us, and she had interacted with ICE. She remained very calm, and she put nothing in her statement that ICE took from her that hurt her in her future immigration cases. I had a situation recently where some clients were apprehended by ICE, and they gave long, detailed statements of their immigration history, and of course that was used against them in their deportation. So not a good idea. ICE is not your friend. Don't sign anything. Don't say anything. Just say, I want my lawyer. Give them your information of who you are, and then be quiet. So after you've had that interaction with ICE, they're probably going to take you into custody. And I want to talk now in this part of the video about what you do then. So you'll be taken from wherever you are captured, and you'll be brought to an ICE facility for fingerprinting and processing. They will verify your identity, check for any prior deportation orders or interactions with ICE or CBP, and they'll enter that information into their computer system called EARM, the Enforcement and Removable Module. e-arm. They may ask you some basic questions. You can tell them your name and your date of birth. I wouldn't tell them anything other than that. You may receive what's called a notice to appear. A notice to appear is the documentation that you receive that commences your removal proceedings. That's the legal document in which ICE alleges that you are not a U.S. citizen and why they believe you are deportable. If there is a prior removal order, you'll receive a Form I-205. It's a warrant of removability. It's to start, again, the process of executing your prior deportation order. If ICE is going to detain you, you might receive a detainer or custody documents related to their decision to hold you in immigration detention. In the old days, ICE would conduct its own bond inquiry. They would decide whether or not you're released on bond. They still do that in a limited extent, but for many, many cases, they are detaining the immigrants first and asking questions later. The ICE officers may also talk to you about release options, maybe supervision or an ankle bracelet. Those are also things that could happen during that interaction. Remember, keep copies of every piece of paper. Your lawyers are going to want to see that in order to figure out why you're removable or what's going to happen to you. It's really important that you ask for copies of everything and that you keep copies of everything, because sometimes it takes a while for the lawyer to get it on the back end if you don't have it. So if you are detained, then you do have the right to see an immigration judge. The judge can rule on whether or not you're eligible for bond. The judge might find you're a flight risk or a danger to the community, or the judge might find that you have significant ties and have every reason to show up for deportation. Of course, these days they're using bond and bond denials and keeping people detained in immigration detention facilities as a hammer to get people to throw in the towel and just agree to leave the United States. We have other videos on what happens next, but basically you're placed into the Executive Office for Immigration Review. You'll have a master calendar hearing where you're allowed to explain why you should not be deported. And then if your case has merit, you'll get sent to an individual hearing at some future date. If you're detained, it'll probably be in about 6 or 8 weeks. If you're not detained, it could be a couple years before you have your individual hearing on whether or not you get to stay in the United States. It's important to understand there's no legal right to an attorney in removal. You can have an attorney, but you're not automatically assigned one as you would be if you were charged with a felony. In America, in the criminal context, if you're charged with a felony, you get to see a judge and you get to have an attorney assigned to you, a public defender. There's no public defender right in immigration. In theory, immigration is civil, and therefore the courts have said that you don't have the right to deportation, even though the Supreme Court has said that deportation and the consequences of a criminal case or an immigration case, the deportation could be the harshest part of it, but you don't get the right to an attorney. You can have an attorney, but you're going to have to pay for the attorney or find a no fee or low bono law firm or clinic that would represent you. These clinics are overburdened right now. They're swamped with cases, so you might have a hard time getting someone to take your case. Of course, if you can afford it, going through deportation with an attorney, you're going to be in a much better chance of success. It's a complicated area of the law. There are defenses that you might not know are available to you, and the judge and the prosecutor aren't going to bend over backwards to help you stay in the United States. Instead, they're going to try to kick you out of the United States. So that's one of the strong reasons why you want to have an experienced immigration lawyer helping you through your deportation and bond process. The last point that I want to make is you should have a family plan. If you have a family where there are undocumented immigrants, those who could be subject to removal, those with removal orders, you need to have a safety plan set up for people who can take care of your kids or watch your kids if they're U.S. citizens, or they could get taken into custody as well and separated from you. That would be very traumatic. So having a plan for what you're going to do if ICE comes knocking is good. Remember, stay calm. Remember that there'll be a time where you have a chance to talk to them. I would advise, in most cases, not saying anything other than your name and your date of birth, and then moving on from there. We wish you the best of luck. If you need help with your removal case and would like our firm to look at your case, give us a call at 314-961-8200 or email us info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. If you're just looking for free resources, we have a ton of them. We have our Immigrant Home Facebook group. You can post questions in there. There's probably 6 or 7 people posting in there every single day, some question about removal, deportation, or green cards or marriage. We also have our TikTok channel at Immigration Hacking. That's just me being silly on TikTok answering questions. We have our YouTube channel that you can subscribe to whenever we make a video. If you turn on your alerts, you'll get an alert to that. You can subscribe there. And then we also have our Immigration Answer Show, which I do 3 or 4 times a week. And that's just me answering questions as often as I can for an hour and a half, maybe 3 or 4 times a week for free, so that you can learn how the immigration process works. And that's called the Immigration Answer Show. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.